So this is an example of balancing a chemical equation, and we did this in class. This is on page 170, question 5.7, D. And so the equation that we have to balance is KClO3 gives us KClO4 plus KCl. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to count the number of elements on both the reactant side, which is our left side, and the product side. So we have 1 potassium, 1 chlorine, and 3 oxygens. On the product side, we have 2 potassium, 2 chlorine, and 2 chlorine and 4 oxygens. Okay, so as we talked about in class, it really doesn't matter in terms of which ones you want to balance first, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the ones that have the least amount of work to them, which is balancing my potassiums and my chlorines. So because on our reactant side we have 1 potassium and 1 chlorine, but on our product side we have 2 potassium and 2 chlorine. So all I'm going to do is multiply my reactant side by 2 or add another molecule to that. So the new chemical equation that we're left with is 2KClO3, which gives us KClO4 plus KCl. So if we were to add up these elements again, our potassium should now balance out, but we might still have to work with the oxygen side. So we have 2 potassium, 2 chlorine, and now 6 oxygen on the reactant side, because that 2 also applies to the oxygen, and we have 3 of them. So 2 times 3 will give us 6 oxygen. On our product side, we have 2 potassium, 2 chlorine, and 4 oxygen. So we have adjusted for the potassiums as well as the chlorines, but now we have to deal with the 6 oxygen on our reactant side and the 4 oxygen on our product side. So now we have to focus on the oxygens, which is 6 oxygen on our reactant side and 4 oxygen on the product side. So before what we were doing, we could easily just multiply potassium and chlorine on the reactant side by 2 in order to balance out potassium and chloride on both sides of that chemical equation. We could also do the same thing with oxygen, but 6 times 4 gives us 24, which is quite a high number. And in terms of chemistry, we want to make sure that for a balanced chemical equation, that it's always in its lowest form. So what we're actually going to do here with the 6 and the 4 is create a lowest common factor, which means that we need to create a number, the smallest number that both 6 and 4 can go into equally, and that number is actually 12. So when we look at the 6 oxygen on the reactant side, 12 divided by 6 gives us 2. So that 2, what we're going to end up doing is actually going to be multiplied by that original 2 that we have already created. So that will now give us 4 KClO3. Now on the product side, 12 divided by 4 gives us 3. So that 3 we're going to actually add in front of the KClO4 on the product side. The reason why we are not adding it in front of the KCl on the product side is we've established that we've balanced potassium and chlorine. Now our focus is oxygen. So the only product that has oxygen on the right hand side is the KClO4. So that will become 3 KClO4 plus KCl. So let's do a quick check to make sure that everything balances. So now on our reactant side, we have 4 potassium. On the on the product side, we also have 4 potassium. 3 plus the 1 gives us the 4. On the reactant side, we have 4 chlorine. On the product side, we also have 4 chlorine, because again, the 3 chlorine plus the 1 chlorine will give us 4. On the reactant side, we now have 12 oxygens because 4 times the 3 will give us the 12. And on the product side, we also have 12 oxygens. And that is how we will balance a little bit more of a complicated equation, and it really comes down to knowing your factors. So I hope this has helped. If not, please let me know. I'll be happy to assist you further. Thank you.